This is the Fantasy Ladder Podcast, episode 9. I'm your host, Steve, at Fantasy Ladder. This podcast is brought to you by the IDP Guys Network from idpguys.org. So, welcome back, my fantasy football friends and family. Let's climb the ladder of fantasy football together. Now, before we get into the show, I just wanted to mention a couple of very cool things happening at IDP Guys right now. They recently launched a fantastic email based newsletter as well as the IDP Guys or the IDP Draft Kit. So be sure to subscribe to the newsletter and check out the draft kit, which is phenomenal. So today we are continuing the awesome fan base series, bringing you some of my favorites from the fantasy football community to talk about their favorite teams. Now, again, we are doing this just to add a little bit more depth, a little bit more heart to the discussion, since I may not be as plugged into the team or understand the history of each team as I am aware of my own, which of course is the Eagles. But today we are covering the Detroit Lions, and I will bring on my guests for you one by one here, starting with Nathan at Nate Cheat. He is the founder of IDP Guys. He's the design lead for Fantasy Points. He's involved in Scott Fishbowl Avatar Makers, and he's a website designer and graphics extraordinaire. Nate, how you doing? And how long have you been a Lions fan?
Man, doing great. I'm so happy to be involved with this episode and especially being brought on to talk Lions. I have been a fan of the Lions since Matthew Stafford's rookie year. Now, there's plenty of people probably in this, group of guys that are going to come in that have been fans for longer. But I was not a football fan early on. Being from Detroit, it's a little difficult to be a Lions fan, to be honest. And
Sure.
so, I never really got into football overall until I met a buddy of mine who I started this whole IDP guys stuff with, and he got me into football.
Wow, that was fascinating. I never knew that. So that's really interesting. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. All right. We now have Chris Robin at Detroit Beastie. He is a content creator for TeamRiseOrFall.com, as well as the Woodward Sports Network, and he is a DFS expert. So, Chris, how you doing? And how long have you been a Lions fan?
Oh, thanks for having me. This is outstanding. I've been a Lion. Let's be honest. I've been a Lions fan since I think the day I was born. My late father put a little, Lions onesie on me. I believe I was in St. John's Morass, right on the cusp, but right like about a mile or two off of 8 Mile here. So I've been a Lions fan since day one. And if I'm not mistaken, yesterday or the day before, I shared some Amon-Ra St. Brown tweet where people were really picking up the pace on Amon-Ra and the Lions on Hard Knocks and everything. And it's like, well, I've been a Lions fan since day one, so what do we do now? Do we play it cool, like, hey, I've been a Lions fan since day one, or do we go, yeah, finally we told you so, even though the Lions have done nothing as of yet? So thanks for having me on.
No, of course, yeah. As I'll touch on in a little bit, I think there is a lot of very exciting, like positive, like momentum going through the franchise right now. So it is a good time to kind of appreciate what's happening there. But hopefully they can improve on the wins and losses side of the issue. But we will get into that in a little bit. We'll bring on our final guest now. Ryan Miner at Ryan Miner underscore FFB. He is an analyst and a writer, part of the great team at Face Off Sports Network. And he is a auction drafting expert and a buddy of mine in the auction room. So Ryan, how
There
you
we are.
doing? And
Good. How
how
about you?
long have you been a Lions fan?
Oh man, I grew up here, so I've been a Lions fan my whole life because it's always been on TV every day. But I really didn't really get into it until I really started getting more into fantasy football. So early 2000s, became more and more involved in it. So I'd probably say 2004ish is when I really started getting more into it. I was more of a Michigan football fan than anything. But then as I started playing fantasy football, I started following the Lions more and more. I mean, sure, as a kid, I had the Barry Sanders jersey because if you were a Detroit kid, you had a Barry Sanders jersey. It was like, no. So, and now as I've been focusing more on, doing the fantasy football side of everything, I've been becoming a bigger fan of the Lions as the year's been going on.
Gotcha. Yeah, I grew up outside of Philadelphia, so just kind of naturally from day one, I'm an Eagles fan. But the player who really got me interested in football was Barry Sanders, I remember there was in third grade, we had this like book fair, and they only had so many copies of this one book. It was like a Barry Sanders like biography, and like they only had so many copies, but that was what every guy in my class was like rushing to, so I wasn't able to get one myself. I was devastated at the time, but I'm clearly over it. But either way, Barry Sanders was a big part of my football fandom as a youngster, so that's pretty neat. All right, so we're going to jump into the Detroit Lions now. We're going to just start with a summary of the 2021 season. So last season, the Matthew Stafford-less Lions finished the 2021 season with a 3-13-1 record, which unfortunately was last in the division. And then they missed the playoffs, unfortunately, once again for the 5th straight season. Now, a major storyline for the season was how the culture of the team was mightily improved under new head coach Dan Campbell. After the summer full of memes from his memorable introductory press conference, the biting kneecaps, and all this. Now, sometimes it is okay when a team is struggling in terms of wins and losses, but are winning in the locker room. This locker room culture change was evident for the Eagles when they transitioned from Chip Kelly to Doug Peterson just a few seasons ago. So, Chris, what were your thoughts on the 2021 season, and how does that affect your level of anticipation for this upcoming season? With you being as passionate of a Lions fan that you are, is it the same old, or is the anticipation uniquely heightened because of the Dan Campbell effect?
Well, one thing that I noticed, I've never been a big moral victory kind of guy. Well, yeah, they lost 13 games, tied one and won 3 games. But to be honest with you, this last season, I started to come around on the idea of maybe there are moral victories, because this team, the Lions, since day one, since I was a kid, since we were all little, they really had nothing going on, especially the last, 10, 12 years or so. So as we start to pull back the layers here and look through last season and all the players and all the opposing teams, and they would go out of their way to make contact with the head coach and go, hey, good job, Dan, or talk to Jared Goff, whoever it was. So you can I did at least, slowly start to see some sort of, as you put it, Steve, momentum heading in the right direction, and it wasn't translating onto the field, obviously, only winning 3 games, getting blown out a few times, but they would hang in games. But to me, we hear that SOL, same old Lions thing, or the Lions, they're going to grab defeat out of the jaws of victory, as my dad used to say. But here we are, heading into this coming season. I'll leave that for the next segment here. But last year, it was a weird kind of thing, because to me, it was same old Lions. That's what they do. They lose, 10 plus games, and we move on. But again, I think they're building something here that not only will translate on the field, but it's already being felt through the locker room. And I can't wait for the day where we see some star-stud athlete going, well, I'm a free agent, and Detroit looks like a pretty, desirable destination. I think that's the next step that's going to happen here. But where I'm at now is positive momentum, as you put it, Steve.
Yeah, I think it was week 16, I believe it was, or 15, where the Lions had like the walk-off win against the Packers. I think it was during that Amon-Ra St. Brown stretch where he just was like blowing up. Just really, it's just always great to beat the Packers, obviously, But yeah, it's like, I think you make a great point about it being an attractive location for free agents, because that is just a really great way to build off the team, as well as through the draft, which we'll get to. Oh, well, and free agency, which we'll get to in a minute. So, how about Ryan and Nate? How are you guys feeling going into the 2022 season? We'll start with you, Nate.
Oh yeah. So kind of going back and looking at last year, they didn't get their first win until December, which I will honestly say that I had, I shifted my attention to the Rams, to Stafford, following him and what was going on there. Loved that whole season for him and how that ended. And I pretty much chalked last year and this year up as a loss, as they build, because let's face it, Patricia, Quinn, they wrecked this team. They should not ever be allowed back in Michigan, even in a transfer at Detroit Metro. Those guys, not happy with them. And I was one of the big fans, the guys that were trusting in Quinn and Patricia all the way, and I just felt like I was totally just like my heart was ripped out when I finally saw what they did to this team. And 13 weeks before you get a win, that's very tough on a fan base. But if you go back and you look at those losses, 5 of them, 4 after the bye, were within 3 points, and you have a tie and you have a record-breaking kick to win a game in that Baltimore
Yeah.
game. So if those games went the opposite way in the Lions' favor, now you're talking about a whole different outlook on this team. And I really think that what Dan Campbell was able to do, and it took him some time to really piece it all together. I think there were some problems with the offensive coordinating at the beginning of the year that when he took over, play calling kind of got resolved. I think that we're going to look at another year with Dan Campbell. We're going to look at adding talent in a very talentless team for the most part. But he's able to squeeze the last bit of juice out of every one of these players, and they are playing for him, which is something that honestly I can't say I've seen since gym shorts,
Okay.
maybe, like going way back there. They weren't playing for Patricia, they were leaving the team because of Patricia. And oh man, I'm trying to remember the coach before that we got canned because he couldn't get through the playoffs there.
Jim Caldwell or Mariucci,
Caldwell.
one of those two guys.
Yeah. So Caldwell, he seemed to be more of a player's coach, but he just couldn't get that last bit of juice out of the players. And I think Dan Campbell's the guy. So I'm excited. I've set aside my Rams fandom. It's in last year with Stafford, and now I'm really focused on just being excited for this team and where they're going.
I love it. How about you, Ryan? Did you tend to be like an optimistic fan, more pessimistic, try to keep things realistic? How are you feeling heading into the season?
I try to keep things more realistic. I try to keep my optimism down because I don't want to get too hyped up because, and there's another part of later we'll be talking about, which is the schedule. It's like, people that when the schedule came out, everyone was starting to say, 10 wins, 10 wins, 10 wins, 13 wins. I'm like, come on, guys, you guys got to be more realistic. Like, kind of look at the schedule, kind of look at what we did last year as the Lions team itself. Yeah, we lost a few games that were close, last second field goal to what the Baltimore Ravens was, a 66, 67-yard field goal that shouldn't have happened in the first place. And then the tie against the Pittsburgh Steelers that no one just wanted to win that game. And that game just looked like, as we all say, same old Lions. But what I liked is going into last season, Dan Campbell came in, everyone's making fun of the kneecap biter thing. But basically he said, if you want to play for me, stay. If you want to leave, go. And he let, and then the players that didn't want to be here left, and the ones that stayed. And it showed like during the offseason, as they're going through training camp and everything, that the team was more of like a family oriented type thing where it's like, it's not just coaching players. It's more him working with the team working with him, balancing it all back and forth. And then this year I could see it more still doing that. Will the record be good? We'll find out here in a little bit. But what they're doing going forward, I think looks better now than what Patricia did prior, because I just felt like I never liked the Patricia hire in the first place. I always thought that was a bad hire because it feels like any time we get anyone from New England, it's a bad move no matter what team it goes to. So with what Campbell's doing now, I really like what he has going on for not just this year, but next year and the following year too.
Yeah, I think he's a really cool guy to root for because he gets so like emotionally invested. Like he just like broke down like in like happy tears after some of those victories, and it's just as like sweet relief, So it just was a really cool moment. Like I'm kind of a softie for that kind of stuff, But when a guy just has such a clear passion for what he's trying to do and for the team itself, it's a really neat thing to try to rally behind. But as Nate mentioned, he has some doubts about like the talent pool on the Lions. So that brings us to the free agency news. As far as I'm concerned, it didn't seem like there was any significant team losses. So if you guys think any differently, please chime in a moment. But some notable roster additions that they brought in: wide receiver DJ Chark, linebackers Chris Ford, Gerard Davis, and Natrez Patrick, cornerback Mike Hughes, safety Deshaun Elliott. So what are your guys' thoughts on these moves? And do you have a favorite addition, or did you have a player or a positional reference from the free agency pool that the Giants did not address? Thoughts on all that? We'll start with you, Ryan, for that one.
My favorite one was the DJ Shark signing. I mean, yeah, it's a 1-year deal. It's a $10 million prove it deal type of thing. But I liked what he said, like the reason why he chose here It's just, the culture, the way they build up. So it's like, he's betting on himself to actually come in onto this, on this team to say like, all right, I got a 1-year prove it deal. I'm 25-year-old wide receiver who's only a couple years removed from 1,000 yards. So, he gives that additional that can help Rosse Brown, Josh Reynolds out there on the field. You're not trying to have a whole bunch of scrap wide receivers like we did last year. You're trying to improve that wide receiver core.
Gotcha.
And,
yeah, I like it.
Chris, did you notice like they've been signing like a lot of defensive linemen lately too? I don't know if you've seen like Lions sign. They've been like signing defensive linemen like crazy. It seems like there's like adding depth there. So it's like they're trying to build more on that defensive line too. And so a bunch of no name, but it's like building the depth there on that too. I forget the names right off the top of my head, but I know they've been doing it the past few days.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So, yes, so some of the names that stuck out to me were the linebackers and then some of the guys in the secondary. But, I think you have to prioritize the defensive line to try to get pressure on, guys like Rodgers and Fields, obviously, and Cousins. So how about you, Nate? How do you feel about the DJ Chark signing or any of the defensive guys?
Yeah, so I was very interested in the DJ Chark signing. I think after the draft, I'm a little less so. I'm really, I mean, we'll get into all of that, but Jameson Williams is something that I'm excited for. But to get to your point, Ryan, about the interior line, I think that they're trying to play smash mouth football where you're going to regret it. Coming up to the line of scrimmage and everything. They want to get in your face. They want to cause a little fear and a little chaos and havoc. And I think that plays to Dan Campbell's biting kneecaps, all of that stuff, just kind of getting in there and doing it. So I'm excited for that. We've had issues. I mean, what was that one year where I think that was like 2 years ago where we couldn't get a sack. Like we couldn't get to the quarterback at all. So I'm here for it. I'd love to see a Lions team that is, especially adding Aiden Hutchinson, and obviously I'm getting into rookies again, but just gets me excited for what they might do. Because once you cause fear in the other team, they start getting erratic. And not to say that the Lions are, a fearful team, but they're building something. So one of the interesting things that I saw in the linebackers is Jared Davis coming back. He went off, I believe it was to the Jets, and didn't really do much. He wasn't doing much, at the end of his career with the Lions the last time around. But he did have like one good season. I think his rookie year was like not terrible. And, everyone had high hopes for him. So I really wonder how much the old, Patricia administration there messed it up. And if something is still there that might come out of it. But in the same point, I don't think it was a very... they didn't invest much in him, so it's kind of a look and see. And if not, they can move on. So that's one that I'm just kind of paying attention to.
Gotcha. How about you, Chris? Do you have any thoughts on, or any differing thoughts on the free agency moves?
Yeah, I got two things really quick, and it's about the moves that they did not make. If you remember correctly, this.
You might need to rephrase that there, Chris.
Wi-Fi.
Out there. No, you're good.
Wi-Fi was cutting in and out on me. What I was getting at is the moves that they didn't make. This time last year, sorry that I cut out, it was all about, are they going to sign Kenny G? Are they going to let him walk? And thank God we let him walk. He was a ghost in New York. And then you fast forward to right now, the Lions, everybody's watching and waiting. Is this the year they're going to draft a quarterback? And they did not. And I think that just goes to show you that, Brad and Dan and this front Lions brass, they have a plan here. And look, in this draft class, we all know the quarterbacks we're not that strong. Matt Corral, Sam Howell, Ritter, we know all the guys' names. And they've been picked up. Some of them were undrafted free agents here, but it's not what they wanted to do at that time in terms of their long-term plan here. So that kind of alleviates that. You can cut the draft right in half. Treat it like a fantasy football draft. If it's a super flex and I already got 2 quarterbacks, I don't even need to worry about that. I can focus my efforts elsewhere. So to me, I think, DJ Shark's a nice addition. Getting Jared Davis back, he's probably going to be more of a depth guy. Maybe he performs a little bit well now that he's not brought in as a rookie trying to shoulder the burden of a losing franchise like the Lions. And I also love the idea of this Elliott kid. We need some secondary help. That's long been an issue, as Nate said as well. Pass rushing, can't get a sack. Will they, won't they? But I think times are changing. But to me, it might be, abstract thinking or off the wall here. But I think the biggest move here was the fact that they didn't draft a quarterback and they're going to save that. Is it going to be next season when they have 2 first-rounders? What do they do? Do they get back a third first round? Who knows what they do? But I like the way their head is at because they were able to really cut the draft in sections and completely eliminate quarterback and focus on other things such as Aiden and Williams. We know how that went here. But to me, the biggest move in my mind is not drafting a quarterback and wasting, I don't want to say wasting, but I didn't think of any of these quarterbacks were like first round juicy talents here. So again, another hurdle or another hoop that Dan and Brad have jumped through that I think is going to be successful.
Right. Yeah, so we can touch on the draft class now. Round 1, they were picking from number 2. They got the edge rusher Aiden Hutchinson. And then at pick 12, they did a big trade up. They didn't give too much draft capital, in my opinion, and they got one of the best wide receivers in the draft in Jameson Williams out of Alabama. Round 2, pick 46, edge rusher Josh Paschal. Round 3, pick 97, safety Kirby Joseph. Round 5, tight end James Mitchell. Then round 6 and 7, whole bunch of defense here. Linebacker Malcolm Rodriguez, edge rusher James Houston, cornerback Chase Lucas. So, Nate, looking at that draft class, all things considered, free agency, the draft, did the team fulfill the roster needs? And do you have a favorite or least favorite pick?
Yeah, I mean, so bringing in Aiden Hutchinson, I was not immediately. I don't want to say I wasn't a fan. He's a great player. He fills a position of need. I was just wanting them. I don't know what it was in me of just going, trading back and being able to capitalize on more draft picks there. And
Okay.
that was kind of where my head was at and everything. But after they went with Hutchinson, I mean, that's just a don't mess it up move right there. You brought in the guy that's going to make an impact. Just go with it. Let the chips fall. So happy with that, especially as time went on. And then when they moved up to grab Jameson Williams, I got excited. I mean, they needed a wide receiver. They needed it over the top, being able to. The only thing that I'm worried about is, and I Jared Goff. They have everything around him in place, which is the perfect position for when you go and get your franchise quarterback. I want to see Goff kind of get back to maybe what he looked like a little bit more in LA, and be able to make better, smarter throws. Last year, I was so frustrated when I'm seeing him throw into double, triple coverage when a guy is wide open, maybe 20 feet to the left or, a little bit deeper down the field. It just felt like he was either getting rushed and throwing scared, or he was just making bad decisions in my mind. So I don't necessarily trust him. And I want to see some improvement there. To be honest, like going back into the free agency stuff, today we had some big news where, the quarterback out of Washington just retired, or Fitzmagic just retired. He was the guy that I wanted them to bring in last year,
Okay.
and kind of do this like I would have taken the loss on Jared Goff, ship him out, get another pick out of it, and bring in Fitzmagic. It's not going to be a great year, but I could get behind that guy. He is amazing. And, so I was still holding out hope that, he'd be floating around and they'd pick him up in free agency. I mean, call him up right now and, bring him in third string. I don't care. Like, I need some excitement at the quarterback position because we had it in Stafford for so long for what he was able to do. And Goff can make those throws. I think he just sometimes tries to do it when it's not there.
Okay. Interesting.
So I'm not a big rookie guy getting into the draft and everything, so I don't know too much about the other players. I'm just kind of crossing my fingers at this point, and I'll relinquish my time to the smarter Detroit Lions analysts here.
Sounds good. So how about you, Ryan? Was there anyone you would have preferred they targeted at these spots, or were you pretty happy overall?
I was pretty happy overall because, like, looking at it overall, it's like, okay, they kind of took more of depth pieces, because you're not truly a quarterback away. Because if we were a quarterback away, we would have never traded to Matt Stafford. We would have just kind of tried to draft the way we had it. But, like, what made me super nervous is, like, everyone was kept saying, like, Malik Willis is going to be that quarterback. Malik Willis is going to be the quarterback to take. And when I saw the Lions trade up to pick 12, I was like, please do not be Malik Willis. I was so nervous. I was like, oh my gosh, this cannot be happening right now. Please do not do it. Don't be dumb. And when they took Jameson Williams, I was just like, this kind of shows that they're not playing for this year. They're building on from this year. So they're going to build on from last year, take this year, also build onto that. Because you're more expecting not Jameson Williams to make an impact really this year. You're want him to make that impact next year. And next year, you still have the 2 additional picks. You have Jared Goff, who's available for 1 more year under contract before you can really basically release him for nothing. And then you can say, like, all right, we get our quarterback next year because next year's quarterback class is supposed to be deeper, deeper, better, something that's more valuable. Where I don't know if you looked at any mocks, but I've seen mocks where they've had 4 quarterbacks already going in the first round.
Oh, wow. So, okay. Yeah.
If the Lions are able to do something like that with their 2 first-round picks, trade up, or somehow get that quarterback to fall to him, but depending on how their season goes this year, then I feel like then they're starting to go on the right path because you can also take that quarterback even and just set it behind Goff for another year and to let him develop. So I like what they did this year because it's more, like I said, building and not trying to hit that home run.
Gotcha. I like that. How about you, Chris? Anything to add to that?
Yeah, you know what you're going to get out of Hutch at 102. Your high motor guy, big energy, lives 20 minutes away from Allen Park here. And then even Jameson Williams. I love that pick. To any Minnesota Vikings fans, they absolutely fleeced you. When you looked at draft capital and you have trade charts and trade calculators. When you did the real life math on the just swapping second round picks and then us getting Williams in that spot, they absolutely bent them over. But I digress. I want to talk about Josh Pascal really quick in this Malcolm Rodriguez. We got to come up with a name for him. Malrod, I don't know what it is. But these 2 kids were, when you look at it, they were also steals based on what they did at the combine, based on what they did their previous seasons in school and where they went. Everybody, we had the same MO last year. Brad went back-to-back D lineman, second round, third round, and people are left scratching their heads. But again, as Ryan and Nate alluded to, they're building something, create havoc and chaos, as Nate said a few moments ago here. But Pascal getting it just in the line, and Ryan, you said it as well. Was this draft really meant about let's get him in there right now and let's run him ragged and let's really, turn these kids out and get them out of the league because they can't handle the stress? They're putting together building blocks that they think will fit and click with each other in a longer term plan. Because when you look at the Lions over the past, stop me when I sound silly, 10, 15, 20 years, their first and second round draft picks, they thrust these kids into the spotlight, into the limelight, and they fold under pressure. Not 2 picks, a first and a second round pick, aren't going to change your franchise overnight. And that's what the Lions have always done. Make the splash play with a receiver in the first round 15 years in a row. See how far that got you. So now you get a smart GM with a capable, handy duty, however you want to put it, head coach, and they're going together together. And I absolutely love the Josh Pascal pick at DN. Kind of pair him with Hutch. Obviously, he's going to be day one starter. That's not a secret. And the Okara brothers, Julian, and these kids are unbelievable. So to me, and even Malcolm Rodriguez, one of the most, not a black eye, let's say, but they've been such a thorn in our side is the lack of studly kind of sideline to sideline linebackers. We just get these big meathead hunks like Jared Davis back in the fold here who can't do much, but our GM and our scouting staff reaches on these kids, and then boom, you're out of the draft capital, and you've really bent yourself over for no reason, drafting these 4th, 5th round talents in the 2nd round, trying to polish a turd. That's not what you're supposed to do in the 2nd round. Take a little bit of risk, but you do your math, you do your homework, and these kids can turn into like full-blown starters. Not saying all pro, not saying Pro Bowl here, but I'm telling you now, this Josh Pascal kid is just as competent as Aiden Hutchinson. And these two start to click and gel, something I'm keeping my eye on in summer OTAs here. But then you bring up Malcolm Rodriguez in the rear at linebacker. He's going to have a chance. I believe everything I've seen, Malcolm Rodriguez is just a monster. He's a dog. He's in your face, motor running 24/7 like Hutchinson. So you're starting to see a picture be painted here from the GM and the brass here. They're high octane guys, don't quit, get in your face, and we're going to go here. So this draft class, in my mind, was outstanding, and I'm not just saying this because I was there live, but this draft class was unbelievably good and fun in my eyes.
Gotcha. So how was your time in Vegas? What was that experience like for you?
Oh, it was the thrill of a lifetime. I've said this. I have a shtick now because I've been asked this question probably 100,000 times. But you know, as a man with no kids, no family, no kids, just Beastie, my cat. I would, even if I did have kids, this draft would far outweigh anything I've ever done in my life. Thrill of a lifetime. I'm hoping it's not once in a lifetime. Hopefully to get back next year and again when it's in Detroit. But I got to tell you this as well. We've all done fantasy drafts. Ryan, you're an auction guy. I love that format as well. And most times in a fantasy draft, sometimes it can drag out. You're like, oh my God, this is going so slow. And more times than not, depending on the clock, it zooms by. It's like, oh my God, I just picked, I'm up again. That's how it was in real life, which I've noticed. I've always watched it on TV, on the couch, and it just seems to drag on. And even the first round, it takes forever. When I was there in person, it was like a fantasy draft. 3-minute clock, you make your pick, boom, we move on. Trades, photos, everything. You got to get in and get out. And it was a once in a lifetime kind of thing, which I'm hoping to double down and make it a two in a lifetime experience, if that's even possible. But I would highly suggest anybody, and I'm not saying you can just go as a fan. Worst comes to worst, I'll drive wherever it is and I'll hang out outside and watch it. But to be there in the media room talking to these kids and really, hobnobbing with some fancier folks, it was a thrill of a lifetime, and I'm glad I did that. And again, I'm more of a DFS guy, sports better guy. I've never really been, making a rookie guide on my own or really, watching 40 times here. But if you're a football fan, you're a sports fan, the NFL draft live and in person has to be on your bucket list.
That's awesome. I love that. Very cool. Very cool. So obviously it doesn't end at the draft. There are undrafted free agent signings. Now, not every year do you get excited for the free agents that you signed that weren't drafted. Just was curious if you guys felt a certain way about the guys that the Lions were able to sign after the draft. For example, with the Eagles, I was pretty excited that they were able to sign quarterback Carson Strong as well as running back Kennedy Brooks, kind of like those as depth pieces. Low expectations, of course, but definitely a little bit excited there. Was hoping that they would have signed wide receiver Justin Ross. I'm a big fan of his, but and kind of rooting for him just with the unfortunate injury history. But either way, anyone on the Lions that stood out to you guys that they were able to sign, and if not, that's okay too. But curious about that. Start with you, Nate. Anyone come to mind for you there, or?
I honestly, I'm gonna let Chris look like he was about to jump in, so I'm gonna let you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nothing that stands out to me, and I'm not saying I'm not trying to cover up my lack of preparation or my lack of homework here. When you look at undrafted free agents, it's basically a lottery ticket. Any one of us can go to the grocery store, buy a $5 scratcher. If we hit, we cash it in, and you buy beer or whatever you want with it. And if we lose, we rip it and throw it away. Not to be rude or put down undrafted free agents, because these kids are still cream of the crop athletically and even mentally, emotionally, however you want to put it here. But as it stands now, a lot of these undrafted free agents, you bring them in and it's like, well, we brought you in, and now it's up to you to show up early, leave late, get it done, and we'll go from there. A lot of them are lottery tickets. As you said, Steve Carson Strong, a great addition. I was shocked he didn't get drafted when you look at what he did, I believe, at Nevada, if I'm not mistaken. He was a very good quarterback. And when you go and look at even what the Lions did last year, just Jamar Jefferson kid, this running back, he was, people, you could see how fast and how quick, snowball rolls downhill here as the social media and other platforms, they raise up a kid or they put gas on a situation, when realistically, this is a business in the NFL. So they bring in these kids and they go, here, we're going to give you all the tools you need. Show us what you got. You have all spring and summer to really lift weights and hit and see what we got going here. But at the end of the day, and I hate that saying more than anything, more times than not, these guys bounce around practice squads, they're depth pieces, and that's all well and good, because when it's all said and done, they're just chasing the dream, riding the wave, whatever corny cliches you want to say. So nothing realistically stood out to me, but I know we're going to find a couple gems, and I'm sure I'll mention a few of them as the season starts in DFS formats. That's always the best option. Dirt cheap, getting some touches, and we'll run it from there.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So to jump back in here, these guys are definitely going to be the stars of the Hard Knocks when it comes through. They always go through and then really bring these stories of the UDFAs to life, and so I'm looking forward to kind of, I guess, learning more about them then. But like Chris says, I don't know. It's there's going to be guys that rise up, and when they do, and then I'm going to be a fan and root for them.
Gotcha. Yeah, the one name that kind of stood out to me was a guy named Khalil Pimpleton. So despite the unfortunate last name, he was the 2021 MAC Special Teams Player of the Year. Special teams is a very underrated aspect of the game, and if you're able to capitalize that on an undrafted free agent as a returner, I think that's a pretty cool move. I mean, obviously, he's got to make the team first, and see what he can do. But that was a name that stood out to me. How about you, Ryan? You got anything stood out to you?
Yeah, I'm still from your sheet on that one too, because I saw Khalil Pimpleton. I thought the same thing, and I see it on here. I'm like, oh man, he's gonna talk about it. So
That's my fault. No, go for it.
But like, it's the same exact thing that Nate and Chris have already said. It's like we're not going to see enough until we see actual OTAs and they actually have the pads on. Right now, they're running around in shorts, not hitting anyone. So yeah, anyone looks good with that when you're just in gym shorts catching a ball. Anyone can do that. It's once you put the pads on, and you actually start hitting people. That's when you really try standing out. So basically, like, these UDFAs are really trying to be more of a special team player. You won't know them as like more of a fantasy player or like IDP type of guy, but you'll want them to be that special team guy trying to make the team, because that's usually the ones that make it are the UDFAs on that special team.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really their path, is to be good at special teams to be able to make the team. And outside of that, it's you're hard pressed. You got guys like James Robinson, UDFA, that came in and got a starting role. Like you don't see that very often. So yeah, that's pretty much where we're at, is just who's going to make it into that special team position and make a team, and we'll probably find out on HBO.
That's right. Yeah. So kind of looking ahead now to the 2022 season, as we discussed a little bit before, but as sports fans, we can love our teams, but we can enjoy more or suffer less when we have realistic expectations for our teams. And the NFC North division seems to be untouchable when Aaron Rodgers is healthy, but the Lions are a team in transition. I believe they are transitioning well with a lot of positive moves over the last two off seasons. So Ryan, after reviewing the schedule release, what do you think is a realistic expectation for the Lions in terms of wins and losses? Oh, you're on mute, but you're on mute, buddy.
All right, now you can hear me, right?
Yep.
All right, a realistic term, I would think more would be 6 wins. To be more realistic, tops 8. I don't see them really winning any more than that. If they win any more than if they hit 8, it's because they had 2 lucky games. I feel like but I feel like comfortable. I think Vegas has the odds at 6.5. So I mean, I'd probably take the under on it right now, just play it safe because I just don't see them taking that 5-game next step. Okay, Cincinnati Bengals did it, but we're nothing like the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't see us going from one of the worst teams to Super Bowl contender. It's not going to happen. It's just not the Lions' way. The way they're building, like I said earlier, is they're building for future depth. So this year, be more realistic. I could see 6 wins, third in the division. We're back in the top 10 picks still again.
Right. So now, if they don't do positively in terms of win loss, what can the team show you in the 2022 season to help you remain encouraged for the 2023 season? Like, is it improved quarterback play, overall better defense? Like, what kinds of things are you looking for?
Overall, just a better team in general. Yeah, the defense was really bad last year, and then that needs to definitely take the next step up to actually improve because we're one of the worst defenses. But also, having Hawkinson fully healthy, having Goff there, having Amon-Ra St. Brown, possibly Jameson Williams playing this year. You're starting building that chemistry with these players out there. So if that starts kicking in, you start building that chemistry, then you can start feeling like the momentum starting to go forward because they're not that many pieces away from actually having a nice built team offensively, but defensively definitely is their weakness. So if they can definitely improve on that and work together as a team as a whole, which as we've already talked about the defensive line kind of bolstering and going after Aaron Rodgers. I mean, that is your main focus is trying to beat Aaron Rodgers. If you beat Aaron Rodgers, you're going to do very good.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of intriguing offensive pieces there with Chark, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jameson Williams might be a little bit patient with him on at least on the early part of the season as he comes back from the torn ACL injury. TJ Hawkinson, as you mentioned, of course, Deandre Swift, and even Jamal Williams. I am a fan of his, at least a big fan of his personality. So very excited to see him on Hard Knocks, especially. Um, Now, in terms of Hard Knocks, I'm absolutely thrilled about the Lions being selected for the show. I want to see as much Dan Campbell and as much Jamal Williams as possible. Are you guys excited for it, or do you think it'll be a distraction for the team?
Oh, I'm game for it. I mean, I've been waiting for this for years to really see in there, and especially with such a character as Dan Campbell, the guys on the team. I think it's the perfect time, really, because there's nothing to lose. I don't see us being anywhere near a playoff contender. Um, I do think I have a higher view than Ryan as far as the wins. I would probably take the over with Vegas on that. I just think that, if you compare last year's strength of schedule to this year, you're pretty much swapping from one of the strong, hardest schedules to close to the bottom of the heart, with the strength of schedule. I think they're like bottom 5. And not to say that the Lions can't still screw that up. I always believe that at any given game they could lose it. I just have a little bit more faith that they're going to take a step forward and that, I mean, I don't like to be the guy with the rose-colored glasses, but, the slight chance of a dark horse into the playoffs, especially with the expanded playoff teams there, getting past Aaron Rodgers is always a problem, but they were able to do it. I mean, granted, it was week 18 last year, but
Oh, that's what I was
that
okay.
yeah, it was the last game of the season, and sure, Rodgers wasn't playing the greatest. I think he might have sat that game too, but it's just I don't know. I've been taking kind of exception to some of the early mocks for next year where they have the Lions picking at like 2-3, and I'm just like, unless they're trading up, I just don't see it. Like, if you're mocking, I mean, maybe within 10, sure. But right now, most of the mocks coming out have them almost in the same position they were this year. And I don't know. I just don't see it. So I think that there's going to be some surprise wins. I think that they're going to kind of piece things together a little bit more. And maybe I'm just super optimistic about it. But yeah, I'm kind of really, really pushing for them this year. And also, I'm going to get to see them 4 times this year because they're coming out playing the Patriots, the Jets, and the Giants, all within a 2-hour drive from me. It's a very rare thing, so I'm going to all of those games and then
That's
flying
awesome.
out to Michigan for a Detroit game, at Ford Field. So I'm hoping they win some of those.
That's awesome. That's really exciting. Yeah.
Like, I like what you're saying, Nate, too. But like, if you look at their games last year, they got blown out in quite a few of them too. But those like good games they actually had, like, it was either they lost by a little or they lost by a lot. I think this year it's going to be more losing by a little, but still going to be a loss. And it's going to be enjoyable games. They're going to put up a nice defensive. They're going to be all 4 quarters playing, because you know how the Lions usually go first 3 quarters and then they crap the bed the 4th quarter and fall apart. I think it's going to be 4 quarters, but it's going to be a lot of 3-point games, 4-point games. It's going to be all like less than 1 touchdown games. I feel like they're going to lose this year. So I can see where you're coming from by saying like they'd be like the dark horse of winning more. Because like if it goes in their hand, right? Yeah, there's a W. There's a W. I can see that. I can see where you're coming from on that.
Absolutely. And the Lions, I mean, their nickname is the Cardiac Cats for a reason. Coming down to the last 2 minutes, whether or not they're going to win, usually a coin flip. And we don't have Stafford to, march down the field like he did in the Super Bowl. Like, how perfect was that? The biggest stage, he had the opportunity to pretty much clinch a win in Stafford fashion that he did. I think that was the 2016 season where he broke the record for most come from behind victories within 2 minutes of, the last 2 minutes of a game. And that's just what it's like to be a Lions fan. You're either, like about to have your heart ripped out because of a devastating loss, because they just dived in the 4th quarter, or you're having a heart attack because they were crap for 3 quarters and woke up to come back for a win in the 4th. So it could go either way, but I think we're very close in how we view the Lions, Ryan, for this season. I think it's just the difference of a coin flip. Are they going to get the luck this year, or are they not going to get it? And it'll be close games that, either they get the win or they don't.
Yeah, I think it's very realistic that they could finish higher in division than like the Chicago Bears, for example. That's just another team that has a long way to go. They have their potential franchise quarterback in Justin Fields, but just not a lot around him. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think it's great to be optimistic. I just know, just being a Philadelphia fan, the higher my expectations are, the worse the losses add up, and it's just even worse. But either way, that I don't see anything wrong with being optimistic. So that's great. But definitely looking forward to Hard Knocks. I might have to start bumming off of my brother's account again, when that starts coming around in August, but cannot wait for that.
Don't be surprised if Deandre Swift is a 1st-round pick after that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it always causes a little bit of ADP rise in there, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Speaking of that, this is a fantasy football show at the end of the day, but we just want to touch on all the teams and stuff. But as far as fantasy football 2022, as far as the Lions players are concerned, for you guys, who are some offensive players you guys are going to be targeting at their projected cost?
Go ahead, Ryan.
My biggest one is Deandre Swift. I've been drafting. It's like I've done so many startups right now And no matter what, I'm like hitting them in the first round, the end of the first round every time because it's just like I know it's going to come. It's coming. The Lions got one of the top 5 offensive lines right now projected by PFF. So he's one I'm definitely targeting. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the photos of him. I mean, this guy's getting freaking ripped, So
Yeah.
he's got to be worth it now because just look at what he can do with no pads on. So he's definitely the one guy I'm targeting. Goff for sure in Superflex. Like he's a quarterback, or even like 1 QB leagues. Like most leagues will tell you, don't, if you're in a 1 QB league, don't draft 2 QBs. But like say like if I draft like a Jalen Hurts, not to knock your team, but like say like the Konami like type of quarterback, I want to have someone who I think could also help me in case he gets hurt. And that one guy is definitely Jared Goff, is someone I'm targeting as a QB2, on my team to say like, all right, I feel more comfortable going in with this than trying to go in with a single quarterback. Because I feel like he has that next step to actually go forward and actually be a very high-end QB2, low-end QB1 most weeks too.
Gotcha. I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually haven't been doing a whole lot of startups. We have been doing the ADP mocks, so that has been helping me, but I've been a little bit periodic about it. But Rosse Brown, I feel like so he had a hype coming out of last season, and then I don't know what happened. It was like the gang on Twitter just drove his ADP down, and it's just a lot easier I feel like when I'm at that point of a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, he's there, and I like him at that spot. I'll take him all day right there, and I'm excited for any growth that he could have this year. So I'm willing to take the gamble. Yeah, Hutchinson, if I'm in like a tight end premium league, I'm targeting him, and I would say I am not a Jared Goff fan, and and it's like, but I will grab him like I used to grab Stafford in those years where, people would just heap the hate on him. Obviously I had more. I felt like Stafford had far more upside, but for a second quarterback or a bench quarterback, you could do worse than having Jared Goff, because he'll come in and in the right game script, he'll put up some decent numbers. You can kind of stream him in with your other quarterbacks to help you create that QB1 in bye weeks or injury situations. So, those are kind of the guys. I mean, Swift is, I like him. I feel like his price is a little bit higher, that I'm willing to gamble on some of the injuries that have happened, in the past, or just misusage that, and I feel like Campbell's going to right that ship, but his cost, I'm usually grabbing someone else. When I'm in those drafts, he's not really someone I can even get, because he's already gone.
Right. Yeah, for me, I'm very excited for Swift. He obviously is an incredible talent, but also has like the pass catching upside, especially in PPR leagues. So I'm with you on that, Ryan. I'd be very bullish to get him at the end of the first. Goff is a favorite, like QB3 target of mine, but I do like him as a QB2. Like if you get Josh Allen, if you like in an auction league, right? If you spend a lot of your budget on like a Josh Allen or Herbert, whoever, you can get Goff at a very affordable price. Hopefully towards the end of a draft, and then just to just fill in if you already have like the ceiling play of like Josh Allen. And DJ Chark for me as well. He is on that 1-year prove it deal. I'm not going to go down like that narrative, but he is a very interesting player to me. I think it's a great fit. He should be ready to go, but by the start of the season after the injury early in the season last year. But where we might have to be patient on Jameson Williams, I think DJ Chark will fulfill that role in that offense. So I really like him a lot. I just finished up a startup where I was able to get Chark as my wide receiver 5 in the 13th round. And for me, that was just like a smash. At least for me, like I'm a really big fan of Chark. I'm really excited for him. Now, how about players you're going to be fading? I think a lot of players At cost, I probably won't be fading just because they will be like relatively cheap. Like obviously the most costly will be Swift. Although the only one that I'm just slightly hesitant on, just because of the position itself, is TJ Hawkinson. It's not because of him. It's just because I'm more of a later like tight end kind of a person, and then
Mm-hmm.
try to upgrade at the position through trading in the middle of the season, just as like a strategy. I like to just build my roster differently, but he won't be as costly, obviously, as like a Kelsey who's going in like the second probably, or like a Mark Andrews and that kind of thing. So he's pretty reasonable, but he would be the only one I would probably look to avoid only because of the tight end position. Um, Anyone stick out to you guys that you would probably fade, or is the answer like just everyone's kind of fair game for you?
You go for it, Nate, because I'm a backfire on one of
Okay.
yours.
Yeah. So I feel like the most of the players outside of Hawkinson and Swift are going to just be cheap. It's hard to fade them when they're not necessarily in the conversation. We talk about Goff, we talk about uh Amon Ra, like those guys aren't people, they're not getting the hype. I would say Ra is getting like it's like hype and hate on Twitter right now, depending on who you talk to. But that kind of balances out, and it's not like he's rising through the ranks. I mean, maybe when you talk like IDP, like Tracy Walker, I don't know if I would fade him, but he's interesting, and his value's been bouncing around a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. Ryan, go for it. Maybe you got a better answer than me.
Yeah, the one I am fading is Rosse Brown, and
Okay.
it's for the exact reason why everyone is hating on him. Is he did it without TJ Hawkinson. There was no wide receiver core really around him, so like I don't see him. He might hit similar statistics wise, but he might not hit that touchdown level or that catch level. But he might have that yardage. So like we could see him more kind of be second fiddle because DJ Shark's going to be there now. You have TJ Hawkinson coming back healthy. You have Deandre Swift, who hopefully stays healthy for one whole season. So, I could see more of a balanced pass approach with this team where it's kind of more trying to understand like who's who for Jared Goff, because all he had last year really was Amon-Ra St. Brown to focus on outside of Josh Reynolds and another wide receiver. I can't even think of his name right now because that's just how bad they were last year, It's just like, so like when you're like a rookie wide receiver and you're doing that kind of stuff as a day 3 pick, it's usually unheard of. So I kind of see it as like almost like what would be the term of that? Yeah.
It was an interesting storm of factors, right? Because the team was playing from behind often, so it's a lot of passing volume. I think he averaged like 11 targets a game in that 6-game stretch where he just was in like God mode, to like end the season. But Hawkinson's back. I don't think he's going to. Obviously, I don't think he's going to average 11 targets per game. But would I draft him as a flex option? Probably. If he's being valued as like a wide receiver too, well, I'm going to fade that all day long. I'm just not going to have him on a lot of teams if that's the case. I'd be fine drafting him as a flex play, but if his price is demanding higher than that, I probably won't be drafting him a lot as far as like redraft leagues are concerned. But yeah, he was an interesting buy candidate before the draft, and then with Jameson Williams, I think that kind of tempered the need to pounce on him, I guess, if that makes sense. But that's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I'd like to go into that a little bit more. And I think
for it.
that my view is kind of the same with Ryan here. And I'm just taking a different um, result of that. I think that because of those targets and that time at the end of the season, that he might be a little bit of a safety net for Jared Goff, that they build that report when other players have kind of, Hawkinson went out with injury, just different situations where they kind of built, there's a trust being built there. And I feel like with a off season and training camp and everything, you get to recognize that and then kind of keep making those plays, making those throws. Not saying that he's gonna be outrageously great or a wide receiver one, or like you guys both said, like at a wide receiver 3, a flex play. That's kind of where I'm at anyways. So I think we're valuing him the same. I'm just I guess I take a little bit of a gamble with upside, and I think that there's a potential for upside there with just having a report and seeing where that goes.
I
Yeah,
mean, his
because
upside's
these.
good too. Whoops, sorry, Steve.
Oh, go for it. Yeah. Go.
So I say his upside's good, but like a lot of his catches he did were a lot of like short and close to the line of scrimmage too, which was like
Mhm.
because you look at his yardage, he had those 10, 11 catches, but it'd be under 100 yards. So I
Mhm.
just kind of want to throw that in there. A lot of it was like 0 to 5 yards from the line of scrimmage. So that's where he got a lot of his points because a lot of your defenses aren't really focusing right there. Your linebackers are kind of sitting back a little bit or close to the line, so you're waiting for the safety to get you. So a lot of your teams are just going to give up and say, "Yeah, go ahead and throw it to him because we'll just get him halfway down the field."
Oh, absolutely. And like I said, not a wide receiver 1 or 2. And I it, last year, I mean, he put up some numbers, but it's not the greatest play. I don't think, going back to what I've said previously, there's not a wealth of talent on the Lions, and but with the new players coming in, so I'm interested to see what happens. And
Mm-hmm.
he'll be someone I'm watching for sure, especially with training camp.
Yeah, I think my tune could shift if he does get that kind of unique usage like early in the season because he had a lot of rushing attempts as well, and like a lot for like a wide receiver. I mean, I think he had probably 10 total over the course of the season, but still he had a couple rushing touchdowns. So just if he keeps up with that unique usage in the offense. I think I could probably shift to being a little bit more aggressive towards him, but I'm trying to be realistic of what his opportunity share is going to be with Chark and with
Mhm.
Williams and Hawkinson back. So I'm just trying to keep it easy there. But a very exciting player. You love to see these guys have their potential um, realized. You know what I mean? So it's very exciting to see that. But back to the hard knocks thing. You know, again, like I'm really excited to see what some of the storylines are. There was a report about Dan, or maybe it was like just a funny thing he said, but he was talking about having an actual lion on the practice field. So I'm semi afraid that because of the HBO presence and the budget, maybe just maybe they'll actually have an actual lion on the practice field. So I don't know, but I think the Lions are in a very intriguing position. Just to kind of see how the team builds up, to kind of have their eyes on the 2023 quarterback class, perhaps. But I think we nailed it. I think we have a lot of interesting optimism as well as a mix of realistic expectations for the Lions coming up this year and beyond. But I really appreciate your guys' input and your thoughts. And hopefully you guys will be happier Lions fans this year and for years to come. So basically, we're just going to wrap it up with some plugs. So we'll start with you, Ryan. Tell people where they can find you and your content. And again, just thanks for coming by.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at @RyanMiner_FFB. That's capital R, capital M. You can find my stuff at Face Off Sports Network, fffaceoff.com. And you'll find Steve and I probably on Twitter talking about auction leagues all the time. So, and that's one of the fun things to get ready for is auctions.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I
How about
love
you, Nate?
auction leagues.
Oh,
I
perfect. Hey, well, we have a buddy. Well, Ryan has a buddy at the Face Off Sports Network. Adam. He does
Adam, yeah.
weekly Sunday night auction mocks. So I will have to tag you in that next time. See if you're available on a Sunday evening.
Yeah, so how do you do your auctions? Because I love slow drafts, slow auctions with like 100 players,
Oh
just
wow, interesting.
16-hour timers. What do you guys do with that? Is that like a one player up at a time kind of a thing?
It is, yeah. So they usually take like 2.5 hours or so to complete. So you kind of have to just be at the computer ready to knock it all out like in one shot, but just one player goes up for a bid at a time, and the nomination order is just the order of
Sure.
where you get put into. But yeah, so the slow auction is a whole nother animal compared to what this is. But yeah, it's like all the rosters get filled in about 2.5 to 3 hours. So if you have that time frame available on a Sunday evening, then yeah, it'd be awesome for free to hop in and experience it that way. But it's one of these things. It's like you blink once and you miss on a player, so it's just it's pretty intense. But sleeper makes it really easy, so it's a really good way to
Hmm.
get a little practice in. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, that's very interesting, in that you guys are into that, so into that. For me, and this is getting into like a whole nother podcast, we could talk about.
I
No, I
want
love
to
it.
now.
But the economics of an auction draft, when you have 100 players on there and you got 16 hours, and your strategy just changes with every bid, every outbid, and you never really miss a player unless it's too much money to spend, and that's when you start to really see, like, what are these players valued at. I will nerd out to this. So I'll end it here with, you can
That'd
find
be
me on
awesome.
Twitter at Nate Cheat. You I'm the founder, co-owner of IDP Guys. And I'm launching a new website, contentdesigncoach.com, which will be a whole community, courses, tutorials, podcasts, on just being a better content creator, and helping people just get better at the craft, and reach the goal that they set for themselves, whether it's finding a solid group of people to hang out with through podcasting, or making it to a DLF or ESPN, if you want to get that far, and just helping to take away the barriers that you might have based off of your knowledge, not knowing how to set up a podcast or a website, or create graphics to post on social media, that kind of stuff. So um I've got my first interview in the can, and starting to create some little snippets and teasers with that. I'll be talking with Detroit Beastie next week, as well, to continue this podcast series going. And then it'll all start to be released early summer 2022. So in a few weeks.
That's awesome. That's really exciting news. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, everyone listening, please follow Ryan and please follow Nate on Twitter and keep up with all their work. Um, just wanted to remind you, like I said off the top, IDP Guys did start a brand new email subscription based newsletter. So please subscribe to that and check out all things at IDP Guys. And please check out the IDP Guys or the IDP draft kit. I did that twice now. The draft kit is incredible. It's an awesome effort by a couple of different groups of IDP teams to put that together. So really do check that out. So Ryan, Nate, and Chris, thank you for coming on the show to talk about your Lions, and best of luck this season.
Yeah.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
having me.
Yep, you got it.